This is a redo of the student registration project, only this time this is going to be for bills. And in our input area we have payer name, bill amount, and details. And whatever we put in those elements, it's going to show up at the bottom underneath payer name, bill amount, and details. I have tested this out in Firefox. This is what it looks like in Firefox, this is what it looks like in Chrome, and this is what it looks like in Opera. And it functions just fine in all three. But I just wanted to remind you that you do want to test in various browsers. Alright, so let's just do a quick example. Alright, the payer is me, the bill is electric. Let's just say the bill amount is 100 and details, you can put in whatever you want. Then you click the Pay It button, and as you can see, this changes to Lisa's, and underneath it, it changes to electric payment. Now, if we want to clear the data, you can hit the Clear Data button, but you have to have the password in order to clear any data that's being saved in local storage. So if you don't know the password and you try to click OK, you get a message that calls you a loser. You click OK and it doesn't erase anything. If you hit Clear Data again and you pass it the secret password, in this case it's cherry pie, you click OK and you're called a winner. And when you click OK, it actually erases the data. So now that I've shown you what it looks like, let's look at the code. The first thing I'm going to do is look at the style.css style sheet. And this is pretty much the same as when we did the student registration. I might have changed some border colors, but for the most part it's the same style. For the body, we have a margin and a padding set. For the element with the ID of all, we set the border radius, the width, the height, the padding, the margin, and the overflow. For the element with the ID box form, we set the border, the width, the margin, the padding, and the background color. All of these you can set to your own colors, your own specifications, your own widths, and so on and so forth. For the element that has the ID bills table output, we set the background color to tan and the padding to 5 pixels. Same as before, we just changed the name. I had the name something else, I can't remember. For the table header, we set the background color, the border radius, and the padding, and again change that to what you prefer it to be. For the element with the ID of Zoozle, we have a border, a padding, and a margin set. We have the button element set and the input element set, and the widths are based on the percentage of the element that it resides inside of. For the element with the ID of add, we set the color, the background image to linear gradients, and we did the same thing to the element with the ID of clear. We set the color, the background color, and the background image to a linear gradient. And finally, we have H1 and H2 headers, which we set the padding and the margin for each of those. Alright, very simple. Let's just leave the style.css out of the equation now, and let's look at the homepage.html. So when you just look at the skeleton of an HTML web page, you see that you have an opening and closing HTML tag. You have a head and you have a body. Here you see the opening and closing body, which I had already opened. Let's open the head first. In between the head tags, we have title tags, in which I just crammed a bunch of words together that says, I love code. And that shows up on the browser tab. Next, we have a link that is going to point to our external style sheet. So the name of the external style sheet is styles.css. That's what we're pointing to. The next link we have points to the external JavaScript file, and so here is how you do that. And the name of the JavaScript file is actions.js. Alright, so that's all that we have in the head. Let's close the head tags up. And let's check out the body. Let's open up the body. Notice in between the opening and closing body tags, we have a single div that this div element is given the ID of ALL, all. So when we open up the div with the ID of all, you see 3 other divs nested inside. You have a div that has a class set to welcome, you have a div that has an ID set to box form, and you have another div that has an ID set to Zoozle, and it also has an align set to center. Let's look at the div with the class set to welcome. Let's open that up. Alright, so in between this particular div's tags, we have an H1 tag and an H2 tag. So in the H1 tag, we gave it an ID set to title, a class also set to title, an align set to center, and a title set to the string blueberry is the secret password. Well, that's not actually true anymore because cherry pie is actually the password. And that's just a tooltip where when I hover over the H1 element in the page, this tooltip comes up to remind me what the password is. In between the H1 tag, opening closing tag, we just have the header that says Woodson's Bills. After the H1 header, we have the H2 header. So the H2 tag here has an ID set to classy, an align set to center, and in between the opening and closing H2 tag, we have the words bill schedule. So if I were to remind you what the page looks like, what we just went over was this was the H1 tag, Woodson's Bills, and the H2 tag, bill schedule. Alright, so that's the div that we gave the class of welcome. Let's close it, and let's look at the next div. The div with the ID called box form. Now, looking back at the page, we're talking about this in the center that has the green border. That's what code we're getting ready to look at now. So the div with the ID of box form, here's the opening div tag and here's the closing div tag for that. We have a bunch of buttons and inputs. The first button has the ID set to add. The onClick event is set to the function add bill, and in between the opening and closing button tags we have the words pay it, and you can see it right here, green pay it button. The next button has an ID set to clear and an onClick event set to the function clear data. In between the opening and closing clear button tags we have the words clear data on the face of the button. And you can see that right here, clear data. After those two buttons, we have an input for text. So we have input, the type is set to text, the ID is set to payer name. And notice how all of the letters in the ID payer name are lowercase, except for the second word, which starts with N, and that's capitalized. So when we are using our JavaScript code and we want to refer to this particular input, we use the ID payer name just as it is spelled. We also have a placeholder that just lets you know what to expect to type in there. I'll go back here. The placeholder is the text payer name, and that's what you see right here. So that's the first text input, and the placeholder says payer name, so you know what to type in there. And we do the same thing for the other 3 inputs. This input right here again has the type set to text, the ID set to bill name, and the placeholder shows you the text bill name, so you know that's where you type in the bill name. The next input also has type set to text and the ID, and this one is set to bill amount. Placeholder is set to the words bill amount so that you can see it. And here's the last input, type equals text, ID equals details, placeholder equals details. And that's everything for the div that is set to the ID of box form. So again, that's everything with the green border right here. So now we're getting ready to look at the very last part at the bottom of the page. Let's close up this div with the ID of box form, and let's look at this div here with the crazy ID of Zoozle. Alright, so in between this opening div tag and this closing div tag, we have a table, and we have a table row, and inside the one table row we have 1, 2, 3, 4 table headers. Alright, so again, this last div has an ID of a strange name, Zoozle, and its align is set to center. The opening table tag has an ID set to Bill's table output and strange using the Z, just so that it really jumps out at you. The align is set to center for this table. The table row has an ID as well called title row, and namely title row because in each of these table header tags, these are titles of the output: payer name, bill amount, and details. These are all the titles right here: payer name, bill amount, and details of this table that we're going to create via JavaScript. So there's the ending table row tag, the ending table tag, the ending div for the div with the ID of Zoozle, another ending div for the outer div here that had the ID of all, the ending body tag, and the ending HTML. So that's everything that you need to create this particular page that you see right here. With that being said, let's close up the homepage.html file. Let's check out the action. Let's check out the JavaScript action. So the first thing we have here is var bills array equals, and the straight brackets indicate an empty array. So that's the first statement that we have. And this statement is not enclosed inside a function. So it's basically, we're creating this global array here. That all these other functions can manipulate. They can all manipulate Bill's array because this is created outside of the function keywords. Alright, so Bill's array equals an empty array. Then we have this statement, window.onload equals init. So when the page first loads, it's going to call a function called init, which we will get to way down here at the end. We'll look at that init last. Let's open up these functions one at a time. But first, let me just gloss over the names of them. We have a function called addBill. We have another function called clearData. We have another function called function createSchedule. It has a single parameter, bill, in the parentheses. Another function called getBillsArray. And then the final function called init to initialize the page. Alright, let's open up addBill. This is the function that gets called when you click the Pay It button. First thing we want to do in the addBill function is create a bill object. And remember, everything in green is just a comment. They're not executable statements. So to create a bill object, we use the keyword var, the name of the object we're creating, which is bill. We're setting it equal to all of this stuff inside of the curly braces. And then the statement ends with the semicolon. So var bill equals, in the curly braces, we have a variety of statements that are separated by commas. The first statement, payer name, colon, document.getElement by ID, parentheses and quotes, payer name.value. Remember, when we looked at our HTML code, we had inputs with IDs of payer name, and just the second word was capitalized. So we're getting that element by its ID. We're taking the value that the user types in that particular text input, and we are going to set it to this new name, payer name, that's in all lowercase, because this payer name, it belongs to this bill object. So we're grabbing the information that the user types in that particular element area, and we are setting that to this payer name. We're going to do it again with the other three inputs. And we have to make sure that we separate all of these with a comma. So for our new bill object's bill name, we have the document.getElement by ID, parentheses, and double quotes, bill name.value. So whatever you type in here, where it says bill name, and then you click pay it, which it's not going to work right now because in my code I have an if condition where you have to have all 4 of these text inputs typed before the pay it will execute. And we'll get to that shortly, but right here's for that particular element. Bill name, colon, document element by ID, parentheses and quotes, bill name dot value. So now the object bill name is going to hold whatever you type. Let's do the same thing for bill amount. Bill amount spelled in all lowercase, colon, document element by ID, parentheses and double quotes, bill amount dot value. So we're going to go here, we're going to grab whatever's typed into that particular text input, and we're going to put it in this new name, bill amount, with no caps. Details. Document element by ID, parentheses and double quotes, details dot value. Whatever is typed into the details input is going to go into this new name details. And it just so happens that the original name details and the new name details are the same. You could make them the same for everything if you want, not a big deal, but it's kind of nice to have them differentiated because you can know that this is the ID to an HTML element, and this is a name that belongs to an object. It's an object property. So that's the only reason that it may be good for you to have those separate naming conventions if possible. Alright, so there's the bill object. Here I'm going to do an if condition, and this is the condition I was telling you about, that if you don't have all 4 of these inputs with information and you leave anything blank and you click the pay it button, it's not going to execute the function. You have to actually type something in each and every one. See, I'll try to hit pay it with just 2 of them. I will try to hit pay it with just 3 of them. And details, we can just type in none. As long as we type something, then when we click pay it, we will get what we want. We'll get the information documented down here at the bottom. All right. So that's what this if condition does, and it's pretty important for your data. Everything that you can't really see right now, but everything that's highlighted in this if conditions parentheses. The first part is if bill.payerName does not equal an empty string. It's kind of hard for me to highlight that because then you can't read it very well. But if bill.payerName does not equal an empty string, then you have the double and symbol here, which means this is another requirement to the condition. And bill.billName does not equal an empty string, and bill.billamount does not equal an empty string, and bill.details does not equal an empty string. So this is making each and every one of those inputs mandatory that they cannot be an empty string. So as long as all of them are not empty, then we can do what's in these curly braces. The first line here is bills array equals json.parse parenthesis local storage dot get item parenthesis and double quotes bill. Or the double pipe symbol means or, and here we have the empty straight brackets, which means an empty array. The next thing that happens is bills array dot push parentheses bill. After that we have this statement, local storage dot set item, and in parentheses we have double quotes bill, comma, json.stringify, and in parentheses bills array. And then make sure that you close both the inner parentheses and the outer parentheses before you put your semicolon to end that statement. The next statement is this one. Bills array equals local storage dot get item parentheses and quotes bill. Then we have bills array equals json.parse parentheses bills array. And after we do all 4 of those statements, First we've decided that all these conditions were true. As long as they were true, we did these 4 statements. 1, 2, 3, 4, I'm sorry, 5 statements. After those 5 statements, we have a for loop. And our for loop means we're going to do some code repetitively. So inside of our parentheses here, for I equals 0, as long as I is less than Bill's array.length, we're going to increment I by 1. So it starts off at 0, then it goes to 1, does all the stuff inside of the for loops block, then up here this turns into 1, does it all, then this turns into 2, does it all, until there are no more Bill's array elements. We've reached the length. So the first thing that's going to happen in this loop is this statement. Var row equals Bill's table output dot insert row parentheses I. The next thing we have is var cell1 equals row dot insert cell parentheses 0. Then var cell2 equals row dot insert cell parentheses 1. Var cell3 equals row dot insert cell parentheses 2. And then finally var cell4 equals row dot insert cell parentheses 3. So we're taking care of all of the cells for this table that JavaScript is going to create. All right. So after we create all 4 of these cells, we're going to set the inner HTML to these cells for each of the rows each time we click the Pay It button. So we start off with cell1.innerHTML equals Bill's array index I dot payer name. That's right here, payer name. The next one is cell2.innerHTML equals Bill's array index I dot bill name. Remember, the first value of I is 0, so it's the first iteration of this loop. So the first iteration has to handle this one, it's got to handle this one, it's got to handle this one, and then finally it's got to handle this cell. The inner HTML of each of these cells is dependent on what is typed in each of these text inputs. Okay, so we do this 4 times. Cell3.innerHTML equals Bill's array index I dot bill amount, and finally cell4.innerHTML equals Bill's array index I dot details. So all of these handle all of these based on all of these. All right, here you end the for loop. So the for loop is done. All right, I needed to put a statement in between the end of the for loop and in between the if condition. And that happens to be this important statement right here, which keeps the data from repeating output. It's window.location.reload parentheses true. After that statement, we want to end our if conditions curly braces. So here's the ending curly brace for the for loop, that window.location.reload true, and then the ending curly brace for the if condition, and then the ending curly brace for the add bill function. So that's everything for the add bill function, everything that happens when you click this green Pay It button. Let's close that up. Let's close up add bill. Now let's look at clear data so that you can understand what happens when you click this clear data button. You see this prompt here, and then you see this alert. So let's look at that. Function clear data. The first thing we're going to do is ask user for a password, and to do that we're going to use this statement right here. Var secret password equals prompt, and in parentheses and double quotes, first we have the string you must have password to clear data, and then a comma, and then type password here is kind of like putting a placeholder when I hit clear data, it's putting it in here so that you know. You don't really have to have that. You can leave this blank, but this caption says you must have password to clear data. This basically just reinforces what you're supposed to exactly type there. And we'll get to that loser thing in a second. All right, here's our if condition. We want to compare the user's password to our established password here using this if condition. So if, and inside of the parentheses, if secret password is equal to cherry pie. So I set cherry pie as my secret password's value. If that's true, then we have an alert that will pop up saying winner. And then you close out of that alert. So if I hit clear data and I have type password here and I type cherry pie and then I click OK, you get an alert that calls you a winner. And then when you click OK again, it actually does the job of clearing this information out. So let's get to the rest of that part. So first we get the alert that says winner, and then the next statement here is local storage.clear. That clears out everything that we've saved in local storage. After that, we want to use the window.location.reload parentheses true to refresh the whole page. And then here's the ending if block. Here's the opening and here's the closing. If you don't guess the right password here and this is false, then we're going to come down here to this else condition and do the else block, which gives us an alert that calls us a loser. And nothing happens after you close the loser box, the loser alert. It just goes to the end of the clear data function, which means if you really want to clear the data, you're going to have to try again to the password. So let's just put some stuff in here so that you can see some data saved. Alright, so clear data. I put in the wrong password. Click OK. You're a loser. Click OK, and you did not delete anything. Clear data again. You can cancel it. If you cancel it, you're still a loser. Clear data again, and let's put in cherry pie, which is the correct password. Click OK. You're a winner. Get rid of that alert. And because you're a winner, you get what you want. You get to clear the data. Now, this is for testing purposes, the winner-loser alert box. It just shows you where you are in your particular lines of code. You don't really want to have that, I don't think, unless you're trying to be a smartass. But it's just basically to help you see where you are in code. All right, so that's how that clear data function works. Let's close it up. So we looked at function add bill, we've looked at clear data. Let's look at the function called create schedule with the parameter of bill. This is a little bit long. It ends on line 112. I guess it's not too bad. It starts on line 78. It's not too bad. So we have function create schedule with the parameter of bill. The first line of code is var table equals document.getElement by ID, and there's that silly name that I gave it, parentheses and double quotes, bills table output, bills with a Z. So we are going to use the name table to refer to that whole part of the HTML. Next, we're going to use this statement, var row equals document.createElement, and in parentheses and double quotes we have a TR, which stands for table row tag. After that, we have to do the same thing for our cells. So we've created a table, we've created a row, and we have to put 4 cells in the row. So here we have var cell1 equals document.createElement, and in parentheses and double quotes we have TD, which is going to stand for our table data cell. And we have to do it 3 more times. Var cell2 equals document.createElement, parentheses, double quotes, TD. Var cell3 equals document.createElement, parentheses, double quotes, TD. Var cell4 equals document.createElement, parentheses, and double quotes, TD. Okay, so we've created these variables called cell1, cell2, cell3, and cell4. So let's do something with them. On the right-hand side of the assignment equals, we have bill.payerName. So whatever we type in that bill object's property payer name, That's going to go, whatever we type in here, this is the bill object's payer name. So if you put it in here and then you click pay it, which I have to put something in all of these just to show you, just to make it happen. You have taken it from up here, you've taken it from there, and you're assigning it to here. Cell1.innerHTML. This is cell 1. This is cell 1's .innerHTML for the first iteration of pay it. We have to do the same thing for bill name, bill amount, and details. So you're going to see some repetitive looking code. Cell 2.innerHTML equals bill.billName. Cell 3.innerHTML equals bill.billamount. And cell 4.innerHTML equals bill.details. After that, we are going to use the append child. So row.append child parentheses cell 1, and you have to do it for all 4 of them. Row.append child parentheses cell 2, row.append child parentheses cell 3, and row.append child parentheses cell 4. Finally, we use table.append child parentheses row to top it off. The next little bit of code, we are going to stylize and alter the top 2 headings. If I can clear this out, which I have to put in cherry pie. Alright, and then I click OK. I'm a winner, I clear it out, and I get my original H1 tag and my original H2 tag because I'm using that code that refreshes the page. It clears everything out and we end up with Woodson's bills and bill schedule. But to stylize and alter those top 2 headings, instead of it saying Woodson's bills and bill schedule in black font, we are going to do these following statements to stylize and alter those top 2 headings. The first statement is document.querySelector, parentheses and single quotes we use .welcome to represent our class welcome, and hashtag title to represent our ID title. Then we're going to use .innerHTML, and we're going to use the assignment single equal statement with bill.payerName. Then we're going to concatenate with the plus sign the string .s. The next thing we're going to do is document.querySelector, parentheses and single quotes .welcome, space pound title, .style.color equals red. Then we're going to do document.querySelector, parentheses, single quotes, class welcome, ID title, .style, .font family equals cursive. So the welcome title, welcome title, welcome title all had to do with this right here, because we have a div called welcome and we used this particular H1, we gave it an ID of title, and this H2 header we gave it an ID of classy. So this represents title, this represents classy, and they're both in a div. They're both in a div that had the class called welcome. Alright, so the 3 things that we did for welcome title, we're going to do 2 for welcome classy, which is the H2 tag. So let's look at that one. Document.querySelector, parentheses and single quotes, class welcome, ID classy, .innerHTML equals bill.billName plus the string, a space, and the word payment. And then finally we have document.querySelector, parentheses, single quotes, class welcome, ID classy, .style, .color equals blue. So this will be, well, let's see, let me go back. That will have an apostrophe S to the bill payer name. It will be red and it will be in cursive font. This one, this H2, will use bill the property bill name of the bill object, and it's going to concatenate the word, the string, a space, and the word payment, and it's going to be blue. This is going to be blue, and we're going to use the bill name and the word payment. So this would be electric payment, or rent payment, or car payment. So there's the end of create schedule bill. Let's close that up. Alright, so we've looked at add bill, clear data, create schedule bill. Let's look at function get bills array. This is so nice when you have a function that has a single statement. This just has one single statement, and it's return json.parse. In parentheses we have local storage.get item, and the inner parentheses we have double quotes bill. Make sure that you close the inner parentheses as well as the outer parentheses, and don't forget your semicolon at the end of the statement. So that's how we do the function get bills array. Close that up, and last but not least, our function init, which initializes our page when the page first loads. So let's take a look at that. Let's see how big that is. It's not too bad. It's from line 121 to line 130. So we start off with var bills array equals get bills array. So we are calling the get bills array function right here, and we're setting it to this variable called bills array, and then we're using that variable further down. We're using that variable bills array in a for loop. So here's our for loop. For, and inside of the parentheses I equals 0, as long as I is less than bills array.length, we will increment I. I is our counter. And inside of the for loops, curly braces, we have two statements. Var bill equals bills array index I, and create schedule parentheses bill. So here we're calling the create schedule bill function that's way up here. We're calling it inside the init function. And also inside of the init function, we're calling the get bills array and setting it to a variable. So it may be confusing, but if you just copy all of this code and run it and change it just enough that you have to pay attention to your naming conventions and where you change them and how you change them, and maybe add some more rows, maybe change the H1 headers to something totally different, just playing with something that already works, because I can guarantee you when you first copy everything and run it, you're probably going to have more than one typo, and just finding where your typos are and how to fix them so that you get your code running again is half the battle. Alright, so with that, I'll show you one last time how this functions. You put in who pays the bill, what the bill is, how much you paid, and any details that you want. Again, in this particular function, you have to put all four things in order to run the pay it. If you have no details, you can just do something like that. Hit pay it. Let's go to the next one. Pay it. And because we're using our browser's local storage, you can refresh the page, the local storage stays. You can go out of the page for days, months, whenever, and click on it again, and your information will still be there. Just remember, whatever browser, if you have multiple browsers on your machine, whatever browser you input your data into, that's the browser that's going to do the saving. For instance, right now we've saved these two bills in Firefox. If I try to right-click this HTML file and say open with anything other than Firefox, like I tried in Chrome, I don't get the savings. I don't get the local storage savings. If I do the same thing, I right-click and hit open with Opera, I don't get the savings. I have to open it in whatever browser I saved it in. So I right click it, open with Firefox, and hello, there's your savings.